Welcome to the Backrank podcast, Grandmaster Insights from Behind the Lines. Today, we are talking about chess ratings, how they work, and how to think about them the right way. And here comes the first big question for you guys. What do you think is a good chess rating?
So, to answer this question, we need to specify it a little bit more whether we are talking about the online rating or over the board rating, online chess or live chess, because there are so many variants of chess that you can play these days. Online rating on chess.com is different from the online rating on Lichess. The live rating is different as well. So, for example, my ratings across different platforms are different. And the same happens to everybody else, whether you play Bullet or Blitz or Rapid, whether you play the website that you play on, everything matters. So, in order to answer this question and in order to understand how good your rating is, um, you need to understand that there is no like one number that you can aim for. The rating is a very relative thing that doesn't necessarily, measure your own strength. It measures your strength in comparison to other people in the pool that you are playing at. So, yeah.
Yeah, and overall, like the rating system is very confusing because you have online rating, you have over the board rating, you have bullet rating, blitz rating, rapid rating, and people play totally different time controls. So it's difficult to navigate that, and it's not surprising, that's the most common question by far, right? So what's a good chess rating, and how does the whole system work?
Yeah, like
Let's
for
let's break it
example,
down.
is a 1,000 rated player 2 times weaker than a 2,000 rated player? Is that the case? No, it's not the case. And in fact, the difference, I don't know, Evgeny, how much do you think how much would you how much do you think the difference is between the 2,000 rated player and the 1,000 rated player? Is a 2,000 rated player always going to beat 1,000 rated player? And Yeah, how would you
I
compare
guess
these
I
two
guess it
people?
depends. It depends on the players. Also depends on the time control. But generally, like the higher you get, the harder it gets. Meaning that going from 2,000 to 2,100 is way harder than going from 0 to 1,000. So basically, the higher you get, the harder it gets, and the longer it takes to get better. I think it's important to say that. Um, Probably there's not a single person in the world who's satisfied with their rating, because there are always players above you. And even for Magnus, like he always wants to, break through these limits and go beyond and reach, over the board, he tried to reach 2,900. So it's very relative because you always compare yourself. So let's say, in a friend group, if you're the best, then that probably feels nice. But then go to a local chess club, and then you're at the bottom 10% because the other, kids are actually much better. So it's very relative in that sense. If you're a 1,000 rated player, it feels like it's nothing, but but it is actually a pretty big deal. So I know that in chess.com, if you're a 1,000 player, in Bullet, and I think in Blitz as well, you're in the top 15% of the platform, which is quite nice considering that there are hundreds of millions of people playing online. So it is pretty significant. Also, you have to understand that this whole like rating system is a living creature, just like an economy. So things shift. The more players join the pool, the more these ratings fluctuate. You cannot predict these things because the system is kind of complicated and self-correcting in a sense. So, for example, from my coaching experience, 6-7 years ago, 1,000 was nothing. Like I would start coaching someone in a month, literally almost everyone would get to 1,000, and if they didn't, it would be kind of weird. Now things are so much different, considering that so many more people started playing online, and now getting to 1,000 is a really big deal. Like if you can get to 1,000 in like a year, that's actually pretty decent. And I'm not talking about rapid, I'm talking about like bullet and blitz. Like if you can get to 1,000 in a year, that's a really big achievement, because again, you're top 15% of the players. So I think the more important question is like, uh, people's approach to their improvement overall. Like it's important how you treat that rating, because if you don't treat it properly, it may lead to many psychological issues, right? Because you're always going to be comparing. There's always someone who is better than you, and you will always feel like you suck, even though that's probably not true.
Yeah, because it's very easy to set your expectations too high and think that, well, the best players in the world have the rating of 3,000, and like there are so many people that are rated 1,000 that which means that I can get there very quickly. Well, that's not the case. That's not always
Mhm.
the case. And yeah, you might be watching some piece of content on the internet from like 5 years ago discussing two 1,000 rated players, and you may think that these guys
As
complete.
Hans once said, he was born 1,000 when he was roasting someone.
Yeah, and when did he say that? When did he say that? Very recently or a couple years ago?
I don't remember.
Hmm.
But I remember him saying that, and I thought that was really hilarious.
Yeah, so could be true. Could be true if we talk about a 1,000 rated player from 5 years ago, but definitely not true if we
Yeah.
talk about 1,000 rated players these days. Because yeah, those guys are good. Like I'm watching the games on that level. They play good openings. They play good middle games. They see their tactics. So a lot of the games, yeah, very pretty high level. Of course, some blunders are mixed in
Mhm.
there as well, but we all make blunders, right? Especially in online blitz games and bullet games.
Yeah, the average
Yep.
rating on chat.com is actually like from 600 to 800 in different time controls. And if you're a 1,000 rated chess player, you're, well, way above average.
I think it's important to say that, as Pasha mentioned in the beginning, that the ratings differ, meaning that if you're 1,000, let's say in bullet, it doesn't mean that you're 1,000 across all time controls. So, for example, it again, as I said, like it fluctuates a lot. But from what I understand now, being 1,000 in bullet on chess.com is more like being 12, 1,300 rapid on chess.com approximately. And then also it differs across the platforms. So, for example, on Lichess, the ratings are generally higher in the beginning, meaning that 1,000 player in bullet on chess.com is more like probably like a 1,500 player on Lichess. But then the more you kind of go up in levels, the more like the difference like shrinks, and at some point like that evens out. And the other thing is that, yeah, like comparing online ratings to over the board, I think that since the trend is clear, we are playing more and more online. I think online ratings actually show your strengths way more than your over the board ratings, just simply because, to discover your true rating, you need a volume of games, and online, this is where you get the volume of games. So it's very common that someone, for example, like some streamers, they still have a rating of, let's say, 2,000 in over the board because they barely play in person, but when they're playing on chess.com, they're 2,500, 2,600, and you could see they could be beating grandmasters. So obviously you cannot judge them based on that over the board rating. And even from my experience playing, I could see that some FIDE masters, some international masters, they play way better than some grandmasters. So like I play online and then I feel like, okay, this guy is actually really good. And then I check his rating. He's like a FIDE master 2350, but I mean, he is a grandmaster.
Yeah.
It's just that wasn't discovered yet in his like over the board game. So the way I look at it is like there is a true strength that every player has, and it just takes time to discover it. And since over the board is becoming less and less popular, you cannot really judge players based on their over the board rating.
Well, actually, I'm not sure about that. I can give you an example. I'm pretty bad at online chess. I'm very bad at online chess. I can't really play fast, and that's a big problem for me. Like when playing bullet and blitz games, and my over the board rating is pretty high. Well, and I'm a much stronger player over the board. And for example, let's take Gotham chess, Levi Rosman. Yeah, he's a great player online. He's like over 2,800 on chess.com in Blitz, but his over the board rating is below 24, and I'm about 24, but I don't have any chance. I have a chance against him online, but I think he will beat me in a match, top 10 Blitz games. I would say like 7-3. And so how
Yeah,
is
so
that possible? And he plays
so
like you
mhm.
know his journey to grandmaster, and he's played quite a lot of over the board tournaments, and he just can't get to he can't increase his rating.
I'd say that with the live ratings, there are some people for whom like the rating is somewhat accurate. But what I want to say is that a lot depends on where the person is from and like in which player pool they are playing. Like it's not gonna be a surprise to see a very strong, young, very low rated Indian player, because we all know that players from India are very underrated. They play in their own pool. A lot of those kids and players don't get a chance to travel abroad, so they play in their own pool, and their own pool is underrated, even though it's part of the global system, like FIDE rating system. Um, the majority of their players are underrated. I can say the same thing for myself, and I can say the same thing for Evgeny. In my opinion, we all, as children, we all were kind of underrated compared to our peers from the Western countries, let's say, because we didn't have the opportunity to travel to different international tournaments. And in the pool where we were playing, I'd say that our pool was kind of underrated, you know. And then once we got a chance to travel abroad a little bit more, again, I may be wrong because we also got better as players, but I wouldn't lie if I tell you that, well, when my FIDE rating was 2,200 and I was playing against 2,400 rated guys, I was expecting, to score some wins against them. Like at some point, I felt like I'm not worse than those guys. And I knew that my rating was going to get there. So
Yeah, so I agree with that. And again, I think that confirms my point about the discovery. So at that moment, your true strengths could be 2,400, and it's just that you haven't played enough over the board games to like actually get there. And at that time, probably if you played online, you could see that your rating is an equivalent of 2,400 or like somewhat of that. Again, I'm not saying, so Misha, it was a good pushback. I didn't mean it in a sense where it's like an apples to apples comparison. Like obviously, there's a difference between like a classical chess and blitz chess. Someone could be better at classical or better at blitz. Also, the volume matters. So, for example, like you're not playing online a lot. So, like if you play 10,000 games, like you would get better at playing online, and your rating would be like much higher than it is now. Then another thing is that I'm talking specifically about the the skill, and the chess is a very complex mental game. So there are many aspects of that too. So like I do think that Levy, over the board, he could easily be a grandmaster if certain psychological things are fixed. So when he was playing online, it's much easier because things are happening fast, and he doesn't have time to gaslight himself into losing. And when he's playing over the board and the game is long, like there are way more chances for him to basically self-inflict some damage. And again, I think that if you look at his online ratings, he recently got to 2,900. 2,900 is, I would say, like someone who fluctuates between like 2,800, 2,900 is probably like at a level of a weak
grandmaster
grandmaster.
on
Uh,
chess.com, we
on
should say,
chess.com,
right?
yes,
Because,
and
for
weak.
example, on Lichess, you'd
Mhm.
be like a top 10 player with that rate.
Yeah. So and by weak grandmaster, I mean, there are maybe like 3,000 grandmasters or so in the world. You could be top 3,000, top 2,000, or top like 100, right? So in that sense, they're like not all grandmasters are created equal. Like some are better than others. So 2,800 to 2,900, like if you constantly go above 2,900, I mean, you're pretty much a grandmaster level. So I do think he can totally like become a grandmaster. It's just other things that are also involved in there. But again, the reason why I was making the point is that since most people don't play a lot over the board, their online rating is much more reflective of their actual strengths. It doesn't mean that, it's going to be exactly the same for everyone, because someone maybe played over the board more, and someone could be,
Absolutely.
much better at
Absolutely.
classical chess than in blitz chess.
Yeah. Like as a rating itself, like let's just think about it. Probably everybody who has a FIDE rating, like every single, well, pretty much every single player in the world. Of course, there are some exceptions, but pretty much everybody has an online account, right, on
Mhm.
some platform, and is playing on the platform, which means that online chess has all of those guys plus other people that do not play live chess. So it's a lot more accurate. If you see that
And
one player is better than another one online, it's more likely the case than if you compare two people. If you compare the live ratings of two people, the official FIDE ratings, because those can be very different.
And let me give you a good example of that too. So there's this YouTuber and streamer VT Alien who came up with a few cool openings, and he's becoming like more and more famous. So recently, he's played over the board against top grandmasters, because he went to like a few top tournaments, got invited, and made a few videos. So he, just for context, his FIDE rating is around 2000, but he doesn't really play much over the board. I'm not sure if he plays over the board at all. His blitz rating over the years, rose to like 2600 something on chess.com, which is quite decent. And again, I think in his case, it makes more sense to judge him by his online rating. But then what I'm trying to say is that when he went and played those top players in blitz games, he beat David Howell, who used to be a 2700 player, with his like cool opening tricks. I think he beat one game. I could be wrong on this. You could check, but I think he played against Erigisi twice, and he lost one game, won the other one. And I saw his game against Fabi, and it was a very tough game. And at some point, he even had a better position, but he lost. I saw his game against Levon Aronian, where it was a tough game and he lost, but at some point, I think he had a moment where he could have won. So again, like you see, like if you compare him against like the top players, like, and they play in-person blitz, and I understand like it's not like a tournament game, but I bet, they still don't want to lose and get humiliated on camera by losing to like an alien gambit. So like, I'm pretty sure they're taking it quite seriously when they're playing, and still he's got amazing results. And if you look at his over the board rating, again, it's 2000. So you could see that in blitz, in person, he's actually really good. So he's probably at that like international master level, sure. And then if things go well, he could beat the grandmaster from time to time.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's summarize a little bit. Yeah, so we have Lichess, we have different platforms. We have Lichess, we have chat.com, and we have FIDE. That's an international rating. Yeah, and in general, Lichess ratings run higher than chat.com ratings,
Yeah.
and chat.com ratings run higher than over the board ratings.
And that still happens up to the certain point. Like for example, my best rating on Lichess is like 2800 something, and it's always like, even if you are below 2800, if you're like 2750 or something, you're the top 100. Yeah, I think
Once you reach 25, 26, it changes, but I think our audience
Yeah.
is
But
not those
anyway, only just
top 100 players in the world. So,
yeah. So what I want to say is that on chess.com, there are many players above 28, 2900 these days, and all the best grandmasters are probably above 3000. Like if you're below 3000, you are not like a top player by chess.com standards. Whereas on Lichess, if you are close to 2800, you're already a top player. So for example, at the top, the ratings on these two platforms are different in the sense that chess.com's ratings are higher. But for the majority of people, Lichess ratings are higher. Like for example, 1500 rating on chess.com is stronger than the 1500 rating on Lichess. Same applies to
There are many memes about this. It's like, oh, I reached 2000 on Lichess, and then like you play a match against an 1100 on chess.com and lose 10-0.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
the
didn't even
difference
know
isn't
those
that
exist.
big, but these memes were very popular back in the day.
Let's talk about the psychological aspect of ratings. I think Evgeny has mentioned it. It was a great point that, especially nowadays, when you follow all the top events and they're all very high rated players, and you think, I mean, 1,000 is just a joke. And every time I talk to, different people, oftentimes when I go out and I start a conversation with somebody, I ask them, okay, do you play chess? Do you have a profile on chess.com? And they always, without exception, they say, yeah, I do play, but my rating sucks. It's just 1,200. It's incredible how much they underestimate their strengths. So yeah,
Can I give
what
you a
about
little
that?
story about that? So I maybe like 3 years ago or so, someone reached out for lessons, and they were like 11. They were fluctuating between like 1150 to like 1,200 blitz. And the guy who was like maybe 55, and he spent like 3-4 years playing without really much studying. And then he was like, I'm so bad. I spent so many years, and like, how do I get better? It's like, I suck so much. And then in that one lesson, and I explained to him that, you're actually very good. Let's look at statistics here, like see like your top like 10 or 5% of the platform. And like you did all of that by just playing, which was the right thing to do. Like you didn't really contaminate your mind with a lot of unnecessary garbage in a way. So he just played, and you reach that level, which is pretty exceptional. So it made him feel good about himself, and then he never took lessons after that.
Yeah. I remember that story. Lost a client, but did the right thing, right? Like did what makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but yeah, ratings, like what you said, it makes so much sense. It's exactly my experience too, where everyone is like, pretty much no matter their rating, it's like, oh, it's low, and they feel like they suck, and the ratings suck because they're always like comparing. And again, it could be a good thing in a way in some situations where it like kind of helps you to be more motivated and like, do better, work better, play more. But it may become very toxic and very like diminishing quite quickly if you're not careful. And it really depends on the personality a lot. Like if you're very like competitive, right, then maybe it's not that bad for you. But if you're not, then that could crush you. And I've seen this like I've actually received many messages like this, where someone would say like, oh, I'm a PhD, like I spent like a year playing and studying, and I cannot even go above like 500. It's like stupid. And, they just feel like something is off. And again, it's tough. I think chess is a big equalizer in a sense, because like it's
It's a very
stripped of
honest
all the
game.
fluff. Yes. So like your rating, once you play enough games, it shows your strengths. I mean, again, once you play like a really big volume, and it sucks, and you can't fake it, and it's there. And I probably think that's why a lot of people cheat in these like regular games. Like I don't know how many, but it's probably like more than 10% of people online cheat. And that's probably one of the reasons why, because they want to feel good about themselves, that now like they're the higher rating, and it's kind of uh, allows them to cope with all that weight. Um, but yeah, I think that's it's important like how you treat the rating, and it's also important how you treat the rating within the context of learning. So those are, I think, two topics that we can briefly discuss now.
Sure. Yeah, in a nutshell, you can fix that problem of underestimated your rating, underestimated your strengths by looking up the stats. You don't even need to
Hmm.
take a lesson from Evgeny. You can
Yep.
sure reach out to him. He will
Very
explain. Uh,
expensive. You better look up the stats.
well, yeah, that's a cheaper choice.
Let's talk a little bit about the expectations, across
Hmm.
different ratings. Like, let's say how much time it can take to get from 0 to 1,000. And then what should you expect if you're trying to get from like 1,000 to 1,500? What should you expect if you're trying to get from 1,500 to 2,000 and such? So from 0 to 1,000, um, it's feasible to get from 0 to 1000 blitz rating on chess.com within a year, provided that you're consistent and you're really trying, right? Like you still need to put in effort and maybe
Yeah, and
study.
let's be fair. I think it's important. People, they have different, gifts. So for someone, they could get there in 3 months because they're a genius, and for someone, it could take them 3 years, and that's okay. So let's not forget about that. So that's important. Then the context of age, the context of what's your life situation? Like, are you only playing when you're tired because you work all the time, or are you more privileged where you could, spend more time and it's more like relaxed? So I think it's dangerous to kind of like give a clear, advice for like each rating. I think a lot depends on like who you are, what's your personality, what's your IQ, and many other things.
But what I'm saying is that we are talking about months, not days. Definitely not days.
Oh, of
right?
course,
We are
yes.
talking about months and possibly even years for some people. So it's, quite a bit of time that you need to spend to get there. It's quite a bit of a level already, for sure.
And to get to 2000 is
Let's not
extremely
talk about
difficult.
2000 just yet, So let's say 1000 to 1500. Is it the same, like again,
It's harder.
a matter of months, right? But, could be a matter of years too, and maybe even more from 1000 to 1500.
I think
I
it's a
can give you
matter
a good example. Oh, yeah, Sarah, you should go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I have a student. She's 9, very talented. I think if she continues improving at the same rate, she could be one of the best players, like one of the best women players in the world. And if you look at her trajectory, you could see that it took her quite a bit of time to get to 1000. I don't remember how long it was. It probably took her like 2 years, if not more, to reach like 1500 a bullet. And now she's around like 1900 blitz after 3 years, or maybe 3.5 years, something like that. Probably 3.5, maybe even closer to 4. And she is like improving at a crazy rate, right? And she's not even 2000 yet. Again, she could be 2000 players, but she's not like a consistent 2000 online player. So it takes a long time. And I'm talking about like one of the most talented students and that I've ever had, and also a kid who's like improving way faster and very gifted. And even for them, it takes a long time. I think it's possible if you kind of dedicate way more time than that to reach 2000 faster. I'm pretty sure it's possible in like 2-3 years if you're very gifted, even as an adult, and you spend like really all of your time doing that. But it's unlikely that you're going to do that, and it's unlikely that you're going to reach that level in that amount of time. But it's important to understand that even for most gifted players, it takes time. That's a long time. The other thing that is important is that in anything, there is this let's say, period of exploration. You kind of need to test the map to see where the limits are. And since chess is such a complex and massive game, it takes a long time. And because of that, what you could see, let's say, again, take the best players, look at Gukesh. If you see at his rating trajectory, it goes like this, and then he gets to like 2000 when he's 10, and then boom, and he's like 1500, right? So it's like very quick. And it's always like that. Like it's accumulating and then it blows up. And you could see some players, they reach 2000 and then they stay at 2000, or some players, they reach 2000 and then they go to 2500 in like a year or two. So it's very important to mention that as well. And let's say if, in my case, I'm working with like a very talented kid who has the potential to go 2500 and beyond, for them, I want to make sure that that exploration period is as huge as possible, meaning that I'm not optimizing for ratings. And that's another thing that I wanted to talk about, because you could basically put the goal as 2000 as a final goal, or your final goal could be like 2500 and 2000 as a transitional goal. And based on that, the whole approach changes, because to get to 2500, you need a much bigger foundation. and it takes much longer to get that foundation. That's why, again, especially for parents, when they're evaluating their kids based on ratings, it's a very dangerous thing to do because it takes time. It takes many, many years, and it's okay that your kid could be 1500 and then in 2 years they're going to be 2300. It's so common. Look at literally any graph you want on the FIDE website of like all the, young players that became like very good. You could see it in every single one of them. And the truth is, again, the longer you make that exploration period, basically in a way, the longer you allow yourself to not care about the rating and try out more things and get punished more, the higher that potential that you could reach is going to be. And it's very important to understand that. But again, I understand that also for adult improvers, 2000 could be, their like dream goal. And yes, you could optimize a bit more for that. So you can kind of get there faster. And again, I think that 2-3 years for like a very talented, very dedicated adult who's very, smart and gifted, and they could spend like really a lot of time. I think it's possible to get there.
2000 blitz rating on chess.com.
Yes.
It's very good, very good. It's great that Evgeny has mentioned those rating plateaus, because you can be 900 and you can be stuck at that level for months or even for years, but then you'll jump to 1300 in a month.
Or
So-
you will never go beyond 1900. And that's where that approach matters. So again, some people, they get to 1900 and then in a year, they're going to be 2300. Some people get to 1900, then they do chess for 20 more years and they're still 1900. And there are reasons for that. It means that exploration process, like their foundation is shallow and doesn't allow them to scale. And if you want to scale, then you kind of have to rebuild everything from scratch. You kind of have to like forget everything that you know. And it's very intuitive if you think about it in terms of like sports. Let's say you learned to kick a ball in a certain way, but like it only gets you that far. And that at some point you may need to relearn everything. And same thing with all the sports. Like in boxing, like you're used to like a few, movements, and then you do them for years, they become automatic. And then, okay, they aren't good enough to move up to the next level. So same thing in chess. And that's why, again, it matters what your true goals are. Like if your goal is to, be improving for the next 10, 20 years, it makes sense to kind of, widen that exploration period. So then your foundation is stronger. So you try out more things. So then, once you get to 2000, you could actually go above that, because it's so common. It's same for most players. They get to, let's say 1900, 2000, and no matter how much more work they put in, they cannot go beyond that. And I had that experience with someone who was exactly at that level. We did 3 years of lessons, or like 2.5 years of lessons back in the day, like started like probably like 7 years ago, and zero improvement. Even though I've showed him everything that I could show him, like all the openings, like all the stuff that he plays, all the tricks, all the ideas, that was completely irrelevant. I mean, very unlucky for me and for him at that time. I still didn't understand those things. So I couldn't really like fix it, because I was like, okay, we're doing everything correctly and there was no improvement. But what I understand like now, and what could be done, is that you kind of have to go through this, a period of hell, maybe for like half a year, where you force yourself into things that you can't do well. And then your rating could drop to 1700, and then you'll have to rebuild from scratch and kind of try to eliminate very obvious biases that you have. And it's a very painful process, but it is possible.
Take lessons from Evgeny and he will guide you through the hell. But yeah, it's very important to have the right expectations, because you can't really predict how fast you'll reach a certain goal, especially in the context of setting a time frame, like even like those 2-3 years or 1 year or months. Like you can set any goal, and the truth is that you won't be able to actually predict how fast you'll reach that goal, or if you're even able to reach that goal with the methods you're using to improve at the game.
Yeah. So seems like the best thing is not to set any rating expectations, right? It's okay to work towards a specific goal and like try to be at a certain rating, but in order to do that, you just need to win,
Yeah. So
win games, every single game, one game at a time. Like I just remember how much I wanted to get to a certain rating across different platforms or online at different points of my career, and how much it motivated me. But yeah, Maybe I was
And
lucky that I eventually got there, but it was like a goal, but it wasn't an expectation, if that makes sense. I was trying to get there, but I didn't set any expectations as to when I want to get there, like within a month, within a week, within a year or so. I was just trying to get there.
I'm actually taking
Yeah.
this approach now with paddle. I've started to playing the fastest growing sport today, and I make a lot of mistakes, and I let myself explore. I don't care about that. There is an app. There is quite a popular app that has a chess-like rating system, and it's very
Mhm.
interesting. I'm a very competitive person, so for me, it's much more interesting to play competitive games, rated games, and I get upset when I lose and they lose my rating point, but I don't care because now I am in that exploration phase where I just try to push my limits and see, okay, is it out, is it in, and but one day I know that it will all connect, and my rating will skyrocket. It will be like 800 on chess.com.
And you'll be happy about it.
I will be very happy about that.
So one last thing that I want to mention, because I understand that some people listening to this, they can think that, okay, like it's better not to set very ambitious goals, but that's not what I really meant. The more ambitious the goal is, the better. What matters is that you're not checking yourself against that goal daily or even monthly. So it's like, oh, I want to get to 2000 or I want to become a grandmaster. And then every single day you're like, oh, am I closer? No, you're not. You're so far away. And if you keep checking it like this, then guess what? You will very quickly hate yourself and think that you're not capable of anything. So it's important to have those transitional goals. And I think it's much better to not have them in ratings, but let's say to have them in volume of games. So it's like, okay, like in those 2 months, I need to play like 1,000 bullet games or like 300 blitz games or whatever that amount is for you. And then you only like compare the ratings, let's say every year or so. So like very like long periods of time. So that's, the strengths has that volume to be discovered, meaning that like your true strengths could be discovered in these numbers. So again, it's good to have an ambitious goal. It just matters, how you treat it, and you don't try to like compare yourself to it like too often, because that's gonna damage you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the rating is not a goal in itself, right? So you want to become a
You just
better
want to
version of
be
yourself.
better than others. That's the real
Well,
goal.
yeah, and I mean there is just
Just
another common psychological problem that people have, which is rating anxiety, right? So once you reach that goal, let's say your goal was to reach 1,000, and then you reach it, and then you don't want to play anymore because it's very likely, even if you reach 1,000, the next day your rating might drop. Might
There
drop
are
to
people. There are
900.
people who have. There are people who have several online accounts across different
yes.
platforms, just because they reach a certain rating on one account. They are proud of it, but they are afraid of like dropping it, so they are trying. They are trying to bump up the rating on their second account. You have students like this,
Yeah. I've
so
had
yeah, it's a
students
very
like
common
that too.
thing.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. So that anxiety also, when people face players that are higher rated than them, like same thing, they kind of know in their mind in a way that they're going to lose. And then they could even be winning, but then they're going to find a way to mess up and lose most of the time. There are many issues like around rating. But again, I think overall rating is a positive thing, because again, it shows
Yeah,
you over time, it shows you like the true strengths. So it's a good thing. But
yeah,
again, since the game is so complicated, that improvement, path is very volatile, and you should accept that. So, for example, someone who gets to 1,000 and they don't want to drop the rating, sorry, there is a reality of, chess improvement. Like while you're improving, your rating is going to fluctuate to 200, 300 points back and forth, and that's okay. So maybe you'll get to 1,000 and then you'll go back to 800 and then you'll go back and forth until you reach 1,100. Once you reach 1,100, it will start going down to 900 instead of 800. But then again, it will go up and down, up and down. And then if you look at an overall trend over the year, you could see that, okay, it's like moving up. But
Well, however,
again,
there is good news. I have a theory. If you once you reach, let's say 1,000, and let's say your rating drops to 800, you will always come back to 1,000 if you keep playing. Like there is
yeah,
no
that's
chance you
true.
won't come back. So even if you reach, let's say you reach 1,000, then you lose 100 points, you will always come back. Just give it a little bit of time.
yeah. As to expectations, since again, even when you just start playing chess, right? Well, because getting from 0 to 1,000 takes months, we can consider it a long-term project, essentially, right? So
Hmm.
it's not like some short-term thing. It's not like a day project that you can control. So when the project is extended in time by so much, when when the rating project, let's call it that way, it's out of your control. So if you have a goal of getting towards a certain rating, you want to be setting other goals in terms of the number of games that you played, or goals in terms of the, you know, uh, some other things, like, I don't know, studying the game. If you like doing that, if you like reading books, you can set a goal of reading a certain book or something. um and same applies to many other things in life. I used to play poker on quite a serious level, and same thing there, right? Well, you do not control short-term results. That's why usually the best players in the world, they, at the end of the year, let's say, they tend to measure their results not necessarily by the amount of money they won or lost, if they are confident in their game and if they are confident in their abilities, but by the number of hands played, number of hours studied, etc. So they are measuring their success only by the things that are in their control, right? While the actual money won is out of their control. So same thing with the rating.
Yeah, and now, for all the listeners, imagine if you're crying about your rating, if you're worried about your rating, imagine someone being a poker pro where you actually did all the right things, right? So like you actually played well, and then you lose money overall in a year, and it's just so painful, right? Like it's just so much more painful than the rating. So all I can say is, yeah, kudos to the poker players. I probably wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, well, luckily we are not playing chess for money online. Like,
Yep.
imagine what an industry that would be. Um, yeah,
Yep.
it would be
An
just
industry
like any
full of
other
cheaters.
gambling site. What is it? What is it?
An industry full of cheaters.
Full of cheaters, yeah, and just like any other gambling site. But because there is cheating in chess, and because we cannot play for money online, the game is a lot more noble in itself. You know,
Yes.
uh, because it's not gambling; it's an intellectual sport. So that's a good thing.
All right. So I think that's where we can end our conversation. And I know that the stats show that most of you watch us without being subscribed. So please subscribe. That will help us grow the channel. And next episodes are coming soon.
Yeah. Also, don't forget that you can listen on Spotify and on other platforms. You don't
And
necessarily have to watch the video; you can listen to the podcast as well.
you can find all the links in the bio.